Welcome everyone, this is Kerjims channel. Now we are back to our new episodes of two semi-reality champions and comparison, featured by Wild League of Legends versus the Mobile Legends Bang Bang. But before that, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the bell icon so you will be notified to our next episode video. Let's do this!
Seraphine Champion Hate Train can be divided into two base categories, her kit and her theme. The kit is a bit easier to pick apart, so let's start off with that. Let's start by saying this. Seraphine's kit, in a vacuum, is pretty solid. It's got solid wave clear and damage, brings a lot of utility via tons of AoE CC, shields, and even a heal. Now, many champions have a bit of overlap in their skills. Just look at Yone versus Yasuo. Both have a 3-strike Q that knocks up, both are based on the wind style, but they are completely different in their gameplay. Another recent champ, Lilia, also borrows a few mechanics. Her Q is bonus damage on the outer edge. Her ult works like Zoe's bubble, putting targets to sleep with them taking increased damage upon waking up. But most people say Seraphine breaks the boundary of taking some essence from another champ and pushes straight into let me copy your homework territory, calling her Sona 2.0 or, more accurately, Sona's VGU. So let's look at Seraphine and Sona's abilities that share some overlap side by side. Seraphine's passive causes every third basic ability cast to echo, causing a second cast. The second part of her passive causes notes to generate on herself and nearby allies, giving her next auto attack increased range and damage per note, consuming the notes in the process. Sona's Power Chord passive also takes 3 casts to enable, with it empowering her next auto attack with extra damage and some extra effects. It is an AoE shield that grants movement speed, and if she's already shielded, it also heals all nearby allies, with the heal becoming stronger the more allies are nearby. When compared to Sona's W, which heals herself and her lowest nearby ally, and also grants an AoE shield, you can see some similarities, but I'd say this one leans closer to a Karma Mantra shield than Sona's W, especially when you consider how long of a cooldown Seraphine's W is. And last, let's look at their ults. Both ults are like big musical finales, being skill shots that roll out forward, CCing enemies caught in the path with their sensational music. But Seraphine's seems like a complete upgrade. While it has a slightly longer cast time, it has a much further base range, with it getting increased range for every member in the audience, aka every champion hit, ally, or foe. This definitely seems like the most similar ability the two share, with Seraphine's ult just being a better version of Sona's. More than the other two, this one seems the most VGU-ish. So, now that we've talked about the abilities and done some compare and contrast work, what's the verdict? Seraphine definitely shares some qualities with Sona, with the most notable being the AoE CC and ults, and both champions get more value out of their spellcasts with more allies nearby. But a lot of champs share some mechanics, like I said before. And her passive may share the 3-cast aspect of Sona's, but the increased range and double casting of a spell gives her a more combo-oriented control mage feel. In Sona's case, it doesn't matter what order you cast your spells in, as long as you hold your auto attack until the desired Power Chord spell is available. For Seraphine, the double casted spell is used no matter what, meaning that you have to be really conscious of your order of casts, or you may miss out on the chance to hit that big AoE route from lining up your passive with an E-cast. Or, she does a lot more damage and definitely has a more aggressive kit than Sona's. And usually, when they do a VGU, Riot tries to keep difficulty and champ identity somewhat similar, so Seraphine gets some uniqueness points in these regards. Okay, so that's how it looks like when we compare the kits side by side. There's one more thing to take into account. When playing a champion, even those with similar mechanics can give an entirely different feel when it's time to pilot them yourself. Again, refer back to the comparison we made of Lilia having Darius Q and Zoe Sleep. While the overlap is there, she feels completely unique. Darius wants to rampage through a teamfight, and Zoe wants to hit 1 to 2 combos. Lilia's gameplay is a stark contrast of both. In Seraphine's case, you can see a similar effect. Overall, with her kit all being so situational, skill shot reliant, and positioning based, I think Seraphine has a much different feel than Sona, who has auto-targeting spells for all 3 basic abilities. They also have much different levels of skill expression as well. Sona's is nearly insta-cast and has a shorter hitbox. Seraphine's ult rewards players with better positioning, thanks to its ability to extend its range off of all champs hit. Just the feel of autoing with her passive feels completely different. Instead of choosing which effect you want with Sona's power chords, you choose how many notes you want to build up. Would you rather discharge a few notes for an extra bit of damage on the frontliner? Or do you hold off on autoing to get off enough spell casts to ramp up your notes to max stacks for you and your whole team, giving you over 1,000 attack range and tons of damage to nuke an enemy carry? Even with the VGU, I don't see Sona ever getting an ability like that. Look, I'm not denying some claims about Riot getting lazy in some departments. It definitely looks bad when there's this much overlap between abilities on the only 2 musical-based champs in the game. But all I'm saying is to give Seraphine a try before you join the bandwagon of her being a copy and paste of Sona, or even a VGU. Now, let's move towards the champion's theme and the character herself. 2 things that are much bigger issues in my opinion. There are several different facets here, but let's start by talking about the core issue of why Seraphine concept seems so out of place. Problem is, most champions in Runeterra are designed from the ground up. Riot takes an idea for a character, sees where it fits into the world of Runeterra, and eventually we end up with a champion that functions in the Rift as a playable character and in the lore as part of Runeterra's universe. Any skins they come up with for a champion are irrelevant to this process, with the character in the skins universe reflecting off of the Runeterra version, not vice versa. And this is where the first big issue with Seraphine comes in. It's pretty apparent that Seraphine, the KDA member, is what came first, with one commenter saying, "I can't come up with a single champion that I associate with their skins more than the champ itself. It's the metaphorical cart before the horse." Where champs like Bard and Jhin had a neat little Easter egg in League teasing their release, Seraphine's hint was her Twitter page. But even that is what Riot calls the real-world persona of the champ, the one that joins KDA. In fact, Riot had to specify in the champion insights detailing her release that the one we were getting as a baseline in-game was different than the personality we have been interacting with on Twitter. Specification that comes across as kinda weird, because it's just never been needed before. Another issue with that Twitter account that has been raised by many people is the fact that Riot almost seems to be exploiting the character's mental health. Look, mental health issues are a serious topic, and someone masquerading as a character with insecurities and doubts just to get members of the community to buy into it is walking a dangerous thread. So, reversed design process aside, let's take a look at one last part of Seraphine, her character in the world of Runeterra. Plenty of people have an issue with her being a pop star in that world, but honestly, I don't think that is that big of an issue. We have gods, ghosts, dragons, cosmic travelers, even a cat, and everything in between. So fitting a pop star into the mix isn't exactly the issue. Instead, it's the execution. Let's just look at Seraphine from a visual standpoint first. While Riot said they wanted her to be a Piltover sensation, she just doesn't look the part. In fact, the only thing binding her to the Twin Cities of Piltover and Zon is her platform and mic being powered by Hextech. Had they given her a more steampunk or chemtech appearance, even with that bubbly personality, she would definitely have fit in more with her origin. Another issue raised is the platform that they went with for the in-game character. Some people think they should have done away with it altogether, or at least only have it appear when she uses her ult. Said the platform exists to set her apart from all other human female mages in the game. That said, the majority of commenters don't seem to actually have an issue with the idea of her having the platform, but rather it's the specific platform that Riot chose to move forward with. Looking back at the Champion Insights page, we were given a glimpse at several other concepts, like staves, which she would ride like a broom, a Hextech dress, a rocket, a giant pair of headphones, and even a simple microphone that left a trail as she flew around. Instead, we get left with essentially a fancy dinner plate. Sure, no other champion has a floating platform, but even with no precedent, it seems bland and unoriginal.
Her story begins when she was a child who loved her father's lullabies. No matter how sad they were, she was entranced by her father's songs. Seraphine grew up in the stirring city of Piltover that never had a quiet night. She quickly discovered a blessing and curse that she possessed. She heard people's souls as songs so loud that they would overpower her own thoughts. The overwhelming and conflicting note of every person's song drove her to retreat to a corner with her hands over her ears in an attempt to block out the sounds. Seraphine's parents, who lived the entirety of their lives in Zon, sacrificed everything for their daughter to be free to create in the vibrant city of Piltover. Seeing their daughter struggle like this made them gather all their savings to obtain a rare Hextech crystal that would be used in a device to dampen Seraphine's magical hearing. Their plan worked, and for the first time in years, she was no longer bombarded with songs. While the unharmonized voices of every single person had stopped, the crystal came with a conscience who sang 1,000 years of history in a beautiful unison. The voice in the crystal protected over Seraphine and gave her advice on how to forge her own unique voice through the voices of others. Over time, she was able to regain control of her magical hearing without the aid of the crystal. With this newfound musical clarity, Seraphine began performing for large venues in Piltover. Even though the crowds were gaining in size and she was gaining popularity, something was still missing for Seraphine. She decided to search for that missing piece in the place her parents worked so hard to get out of, Zaun. Her magical hearing causes her to be able to hear the struggles between the lower city of Zon versus the upper city of Piltover. With every performance, she wished more and more that the two cities would somehow mend their issues. Her desire to amend was continually met by a voice in her head telling her that it is not that simple in Zon. Seraphine was not content with that conclusion, so, with help from her parents, they decided to repurpose the crystal from her noise dampener into a device that would actually enhance her powers.